Hello, LinkedIn makers and movers. Our guest today is what I'd classify as a LinkedIn insider. That's a term I just made up. It's not someone who works at LinkedIn. It's someone who's building software or service to support the rapidly growing segment of creators who are building personal brands. They're building businesses. It's a term for someone who's put in the reps, has insights and perspective on how to do LinkedIn better, derived from seeing patterns across the clients they serve. Our guest today is Alex Boyd, the CEO of Aware. But before we welcome him formally, I just want to turn back the clock and talk a little bit about his career to date. He got his start in sales. No surprise here, because it was sales as a profession that first embraced today what we call thought leadership, personal branding, or founder brand. Back then, it was just called social selling. He started his career as a foreign exchange broker. He then moved into financial services. In both roles, he crushed his quota. Then he took on a management role, overseeing a team of 20 AEs and SDRs, turning around a struggling SDR team. During that time, he was named an MVP by Modern Sales Pros and a top sales development leader by Sales Hacker. After that, you think he set his sights for a VP of sales role or a chief revenue officer, but he went out and he started an SEO agency called Revenue Zen. And recently, he built that to a seven-figure exit. And while growing that business, he stumbled upon the pain of social selling. You need to constantly engage with your target audience via commenting to warm them up to a conversation. And at the same time, for folks who are building their personal brands, LinkedIn got more crowded. It started to behave more like Twitter, and that you really need to engage to grow. And the common, pain for those people is that LinkedIn has a terrible feature set for organizing and surfacing comments of people who are posting on your content. So from that pain came Aware, a LinkedIn engagement software. And now that has a seven-figure valuation, almost 1,000 users, and Alex has a ton of insights to draw from. In fact, he just published a 50-page State of LinkedIn report that we'll talk about. And one other fun thing that I learned about him in his research, he once described himself as a philosopher who should live in the forest. And today, while he's not a philosopher in the traditional sense, to me, he's the philosopher of LinkedIn. His posts are some of the most thoughtful and insightful out there on strategies and tactics to grow as a creator. And with that, let's welcome Alex Boyd, the founder of Aware, to the LinkedIn Famous podcast. Welcome to the LinkedIn Famous podcast, the show where we get real about what it takes to build a personal brand on LinkedIn that gets real business results. We're talking about driving revenue from a personal LinkedIn profile by sharing real and authentic stories and points of view. I am Brad Zomick, your host and the founder of Spectrumer, a personal brand consultancy that helps founders and executives get LinkedIn famous. Join me for unfiltered conversations from the trenches of LinkedIn. We'll meet CEOs, go-to-market executives, subject matter experts, and company employees with blockbuster LinkedIn results. We'll unpack strategy and leave you with tactical advice to grow your personal brand and demand for your company's products and services. All right, LinkedIn hustlers, it's time to level up.
That is the most thorough intro I think I've ever heard. You went further back than anyone has. Nobody goes back to FXCM, but you did, so I applaud you. Thank you for having me, Brad.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have you here. And is there anything in your background that you want to double click on?
Oh man, tons. Yeah, the one interesting link from the agency was that it started as a sales consulting and SDR agency, and it migrated as we took on new partners. And so I didn't start out to create an SEO agency, but it ended up there, which I think illustrates the power of pivoting and rebranding and never being afraid to say, "Dear LinkedIn, I am something else," and just saying that for 3 months. And eventually it's true.
Hey, that's the founder life. Almost every quarter, you're burning the whole thing down and starting over.
Yeah, for a while. And then you hit it, and then it's all up from there.
All right. So I always like to ask our guests to tell us something about themselves that the audience couldn't learn from their LinkedIn profile.
Interesting. I'm down 25 pounds since I last took my photos, and I'm going to eventually be at my co-founder's weight if I keep this up soon. So I'm very hungry right now, but I had a nice big green smoothie for lunch. And actually, you might be surprised how podcast worthy I nevertheless feel. So it's a very in the moment thing that is not clear from my profile.
Are you guys having some sort of health competition? You
kind
and your
of.
co-founder? Okay.
Well, no, it's more like my wife is encouraging me to join. And my co-founder is just been like a lean stick of a man for as long as I've known him. And the fact that I'm getting close to him is very surprising. I've known him for, I don't know, 8 years at this point. So
Well, I appreciate that. I guess having fallen into kind of founder life, that taking care of yourself almost kind of helps you be better at the work that you do. So
yeah,
puts you in the game shape, so to speak.
so I'm thinking, man, sure hope so.
So maybe another question along the lines of kind of behind the scenes, Alex. What we don't know about LinkedIn. What is something that people assume about you based on LinkedIn that isn't true?
I think they assume I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, that I spend a lot of time writing on my posts. I think they assume that I am not going to respond when they reach out. I think many people who commented on my post asking for that recent State of LinkedIn report were genuinely surprised that I responded and that I was not automating my responses. And people just had this moment of like, wow, you actually came through. And it's like, yeah, it's me in the coffee shop writing to you direct from my own brain and my own two hands. Like, this is what I do.
That is amazing. We can kind of get into that kind of play and also a little bit about how you do your system, but I kind of want to get into the journey first.
Yeah.
And going back to kind of maybe back to the first time you started consistently posting, or you're like, I want to do this. What was the motivation and inspiration to start investing in your presence here on this platform?
It was because I was learning at my job of sales leadership, and my boss had indicated that I had done a good job with that SDR team turnaround that you alluded to earlier, and that others in town were talking about it. And that was the first time in my career that anything of that nature had happened, where I hadn't even conceived of anybody outside of the company knowing what I was doing or thinking well of it. And the motivation was to just sort of journal my thoughts and my ideas in public to see if that was true. And I thought, I'll just put it to the test. If I'm at all good at this, writing down what I know will be a way of seeing if people respond negatively, I'll know I have to go back to the drawing board. If positively, or anything in between, I'll know something. And the positive response to it was the reason I felt confident kicking off my consultancy was just, I realized I knew at least enough to help people one or two steps behind me in my one area of business, which at that time was just sales leadership. And that was enough. I didn't need anything more than that. I just thought, I'll just start helping out and people will take notice, I think. And I hope it turned out to be true. They did.
That is pretty cool. And so it sounds like you had some positive signals, but I imagine it wasn't all gravy. Were there any challenges that you faced early on?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. There was no real system for it. The closest thing to a LinkedIn thought leader you had was, do you remember Josh Fector?
Yes, I do. BAMF Media? BAMF?
Whatever it was. It's just like the original broetry, right? And like that that was the best we had as far as, how to do LinkedIn. We had Oleg, whatever his name was, just posting like, I don't know how he got viral, but there was the Bridget Hyacinth and so forth who just like sort of the mega virals, and there wasn't a lot going on in B2B. There wasn't. Justin Welsh was still a director of sales. So many things that we now take for granted were not there. So it was just, the challenge was I was just writing my thoughts down, pulling from where I could, and then creating what has now become a strategy. But it's almost better that way, because now there's so much distracting, like how to do LinkedIn courses. I can't think of a single how to do LinkedIn for what we now think of as like thought leadership and being a creator. This is before creator mode was a thing. This is back when there was only one like button. There was no LinkedIn Lives, events, audio. There was just, you write post, people reach out. That was it. It's a very kind of blue sky thing at the time. So that was a blessing and a curse. No one to teach me what to do, but also no one to distract me.
And was there a point where things started to click?
Yeah, like maybe a month in of maybe like 4 or 5 posts in, a contact that I knew from a couple of years prior, like very, very vaguely, like we were at a party one time, reached out and said, hey, I'm growing my sales team, like saw you in my LinkedIn newsfeed, we should talk. And then I just signed them as a client for consulting, signed them as a client for SDR services, had a huge transformative impact on their company. They paid us over $200,000 And I was like, this is working. Like, I have the proof. He said, I saw you in my LinkedIn newsfeed. I have the invoices to prove it. Like, let's go. And then it started to become more systematic, where that happened again and again and again. And I think we had about 136 closed won deals for the agency sourced from my LinkedIn. And at this point, it's over, 6.5 million of revenue from that. And then the software sales and valuation is just adding and adding. And I'm rapidly on the way towards 8 figures of LinkedIn sourced revenue. Not all margin, but agencies are pretty low margin. But at the same time, like, nonetheless, has been a huge just wealth generator for me since. So it started from the very humble beginnings of just journaling in public and became like a homegrown system that I've built myself.
That is quite impressive, and congrats on those feats. So it seems like you went through a few iterations, right? You started in sales and went to kind of SEO services and into LinkedIn. The personal branding change, what were those pivots?
A little bit worrisome in deciding. We kind of had a 7-figure SDR services business that we had decided we no longer wanted, but giving it up all at once was unthinkable, right? Like, what happens to our income? So we decided to give it up slowly and pivot. And I would just slowly start talking more about content marketing and lead gen and SEO and BD marketing overall, rather than just SDR. And so that was kind of you can see on the revenue graphs at our company, like the business line revenue, you can see the SDR one go up, 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 and then content's like kind of down here. And then slowly we let go of a 7-figure business unit and make a new one over the course of 3 quarters. And on LinkedIn, what was happening is I was posting about that transition, but also just saying, here's what I am now. I didn't say, here's what I am now explicitly. I would just talk about new things, and people would conclude that that's what I was now. Some of the OGs will remember, like, oh yeah, I remember when you were talking about sales development all day. I was like, yeah, I don't do that anymore ever. But once in a while, I'll post about outbound, and people will come out of the woodwork because it's still somehow baked into my like algorithm or audience that, like, if I talk about outbound, there's a little bit of a weight behind it because I spent years in that segment. But it was surprisingly easy to just talk about new things. Suddenly you're a new thing. You change your headline, change your banner, change your post topics. And then now you have to go back several years to find my outbound posts. They're there. You can find them. But it takes a few months to really rebrand.
What about the networking element? Obviously, you have your existing base that, they're along for the ride, right? And some of them will move on and be interested in that stuff and engage. Others may not. How did you like kind of sculpt your network and shape it as you were evolving?
That was tough. A lot of people saying, hey, this is what you're doing now, it sounds like, or hey, can you do this old service for me? And I had to really engage them on like the story of why we transitioned. So lots of just hand-to-hand DMing of like explaining the transition, sitting down with people, tons of offline meetings. People be like, hey, it looks like you're doing this new thing now. And I explain it to them, and hundreds of, explanations later, suddenly people are like, yeah, I remember when you told me about that, and they get it. A lot of the people that were engaging with me were connected to the new buyer persona. So like a head of sales is not that much different from the same company's head of marketing. So there was a bit of like forming new connections and just literally connect requesting to tons of VPs of marketing, engaging with new content. So instead of engaging with sales content, I'm engaging with founders and CROs and CMOs. But that was in my control. Again, like a few months of doing that, it was starting to build up. You got to really take an action in your own hands. Like, you really have to force the market to believe in your pivot without telling them that it's a pivot. Like, don't say it's a pivot, just do it. But then it's effective. But yeah, connecting, DMing, offline meetings, posting, literally everything you do on LinkedIn changes. And offline too. Off LinkedIn as well has to match that change for it to be effective.
So it sounds like a little bit of brute force, but obviously for all those new connections you meet, it's kind of an easy transition. And maybe even like moving from the SEO kind of content world to LinkedIn, that's actually probably a more natural progression, right? Because like almost the channels of communication changed a lot during that time, which is convenient, right?
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious. We talked a lot about, I guess, your branding and your evolution, your network. What was going on with how you approach content, or your LinkedIn in general, I guess your system, if you will? What did it look like, and what has it evolved to?
Well, in the past, I was posting an average of 1 to 2 times a week for many years. So like nowhere near what people say now. If you're going to post every day, I was like, no way. And I would engage a good amount. So I would just spend time in the feed. There was no Aware back then. So I would just spend time in the feed, commenting on posts and trying to be insightful in quips in public and comments and stuff. And I would do plenty of offline meetings with other people who were also growing on LinkedIn. So there's a lot of people who I had met offline, also trying to do the same thing. And we would engage with each other. It just formed this like, it wasn't a pod. It was just a bunch of people who, when we saw each other in the feed, were like, oh yeah, that guy. And I was just doing that. And I didn't have a system. Lately, I've been more systematizing content. I mean, I'm going to release the Aware custom tuned AI writer soon, but like I have an AI writer trained on my own top hundreds of posts. So if I talk about a same topic I've talked about before or a similar one, it sounds like me because it is me, And this didn't exist when I was starting out. The imagery, I used to do all the graphics myself. I would take Excel file screenshots. Canva didn't exist, so I didn't have really much at all except, screenshots of our client reports. And now I have a carousel guy, an infographic guy, branded Figma templates for all my stuff. There's just more infrastructure. And with infrastructure, you could do more. You pave the highways and you go faster. Then horse and buggy, I made it work, but now I have a car on a highway. But I had to build that over a longer period of time. So the system sort of became like, how do I not spend my whole day on LinkedIn to get the things done I need to get that done? And now I spend remarkably little time on LinkedIn as far as what people might think. I'm excluding like customer service here because a lot of Aware customers contact us on LinkedIn. That's not marketing, that's customer service. But for the actual marketing time, it's not that much. Podcasts can be clipped into video and posted. I've developed a writing practice that I can write my own content pretty quick. The AI trained on my voice helps me get drafts out the door that I can then plus or minus 30% of and build on. The engagement I do through Aware, and it's much quicker than doing it by hand. All these things, just every aspect of it has received this attention and systemization, which has not reduced authenticity, but increased it. I now have the bandwidth to be better in all these channels because I'm not so strapped for time. So I can spend more time reading and thinking and talking to people in a real way because I'm not spending 8 hours a day spinning my wheels on LinkedIn. The influencers who say, yeah, spend 3 hours a day commenting, it's like, what impression are you leaving? I'm at no more than an hour a day max, including customer service, PR, marketing, the basics, 20 minutes a day, no more.
Basics is like is that more engagement or is that the content itself?
Engagement and inbox, yeah.
Okay. And then the other 40 minutes is writing. Do you have like a writing practice or
writing, managing designers, managing video editing, recording the content itself. So like setting up the camera, recording the content, scripting, things like getting LinkedIn Live set up, tweaking with StreamYard, just all the stuff in and around it. I have the rest of my businesses to run. So I must spend no more than really an hour a day on it. Yeah.
That's impressive, I gotta say. And are you posting daily now?
Almost 6 times a week on average.
Okay. What's your take on people who are like getting involved now? Do you think there's like a right frequency to start at, or does that depend?
It's got to depend. Like I said earlier, it's been over systematized, I think, by the rags to riches crowd and I was broke a year ago. Now I'm a LinkedIn, whatever. I have this many followers. I'm not telling you what they're making on the back end, and it's often not that much. But there's all this like do this and you'll be rich stuff for LinkedIn. But when I think about to how I started as like a professional journal, and so there was no cadence that I must post at unless I had something to say. So starting out, I'd recommend it be a business journal and post when you have something to say. Once you're in the habit of coming up with ideas based on a daily reflection, right? Like 2 bullet points a day in an iPhone notes doc, and then writing once a week, 1 or 2 of those into a full post. Once that's down pat for you, great. Repurpose, create media out of it, like start to build on the production value. But people do the best on LinkedIn when it begins as them showing up with the lessons they've learned, trying to help others in their industry, and not trying to do LinkedIn, but trying to share knowledge, credibility that they've are in the trenches of whatever job they're doing.
That is an amazing perspective, and I kind of agree with you. And having kind of worked with a few founders, when they kind of jump in, almost the frequency is arbitrary, right? Depends what they have to say. And I think a recipe for disaster is I'm going to do 5 to 7 a week, and not having the right kind of underpinnings or structure or foundation to actually feed the ideas into that, because that's a place where it dries up. There are multiple places, I guess, in that you call it an idea or content funnel where, from inception to posted content where it could all fall apart. And I like that organic approach. I wanted to dig in. You hit the buzzword bingo with AI. Honestly, I think what you're doing is genius. What does that look like? Do you have a custom GPT or it was effectively something like that? Or what did you build to kind of make it your life easier when it comes to writing?
Well, I tried all the GPTs and all the chat GPT prompts and stuff, and they were all pretty much garbage because my voice is pretty distinct at this point. So I'm talking about an aware feature. What we do is our product trains a model. It's actually fine-tuning an OpenAI model on as many posts as we have. So for me, I think we did the last couple hundred of my posts, and then fine-tuned a model that I can now prompt with a certain thing, and I'll get a draft back that's pretty good because it's fine-tuned on my history of writing. And sometimes if it doesn't know, it makes stuff up, because if I take it in a direction I've never written about, it's gonna reach. So I have to be ready for that. But especially for repurposing, especially for addressing similar topics in new ways, if you have 3 posts about commenting and I want to say these other 4 ideas about commenting on LinkedIn, I could prompt 4 new ways and it's going to be able to draw from it because I have a base of knowledge trained on it. And all of these 12-step AI processes that I've seen out there, some of them are okay, but I've never seen anything come close to, at least for my own voice, to what Aware has been able to build for me. We haven't turned this feature on publicly. It's still just request only. So for people that are using Aware, you won't see it unless you ask. But that's what we built. And you don't need to spend all this time dinking around in ChatGPT. You'll be able to hit a button or just ask us and we'll hit the button. 20 minutes later, you have a little prompter in your post creator, and then you can prompt yourself. Or if you're an agency, your client's past writing history for new posts. And it's damn good.
That is compelling. Having been around the block a little bit in this LinkedIn space, I've definitely tinkered and I tried a lot of the different AI products out there, and they've been largely disappointing.
Yeah.
Right? I think if you're a good enough writer, it's most of the time it's easier just to kind of...
It is.
Just write it yourself, unless you can get it to sound like you, right? And
yeah,
if you fool yourself, then you can fool other people, right?
It's the bar, right? The bar for AI is it better than a blank page? And until this, nothing was better than a blank page. It was almost actively distracting to have this just dreck that I was supposed to edit, work with. It was just I almost insulted myself trying to start with the ChatGPT post as the baseline. It was this is awful. I don't want to start with this. I want to just create for myself. But until now, and now I'm I'd rather start with an Aware AI draft because it's better than a blank page, which for me, that's the threshold.
All right, I'm signing up to give that a try. I want to dig back into the commenting. Number one, it's amazing that you could do all this commenting in such a short amount of time. What's the approach now? I guess, how do you think about targeting, frequency, coordination with kind of your posts as well?
For me or for somebody starting out?
Actually, I guess you can answer the question in both ways.
Okay. I think in the last month, I've written in total on my own posts and other posts about 2,500 comments. That's too many. A, that's overwhelming. And B, you can't do that without Aware. There's just too much. There's no way without automation or Aware to streamline it for you. And Aware is not automating my comments. How do we get there? One of my posts, I wrote 900 comments in response to because there was 900 comments of people asking for the thing I was distributing. So that's 900. So the rest of it is 1,500. A good amount of those are responses on my own posts. In terms of the outbound comments, I have a few approaches. One is my community feed. This is an Aware feed of just people's posts from the people that engage with me the most. So I'm just saying, if you engage with me a lot, you'll be on my community feed automatically, and I'll just easily be able to engage with you too. Because we sell to LinkedIn agencies and teams and people who talk about LinkedIn, I have the influencer list in Aware for the LinkedIn growth influencers. You could make this yourself with a spreadsheet or a bookmarks bar, but just take more clicks. but a bunch of people that I think are in the space that I want to engage with their content on, because my comments on their content will be seen as like entries in other people's feeds. Fun fact, right now, more of my profile's appearances across LinkedIn are from my comments than from my posts, which is
That's neat. Yeah.
Did you just see that new feature that came out in the search
I
appearances?
did. Yeah. Ever since that came out, I'm like trying to do more commenting myself as well.
It's convincing, isn't it?
Yeah. I've always thought that there's more upside in commenting. It's literally, it's like there's no cap. You can comment all day long, right? And
Yeah.
probably some people do.
Too. One guy was commenting 8 hours a day, and then he used Aware to do it in 2 hours a day. He's still using it way too much, in my opinion. That's too much. But if you save 6 hours a day of LinkedIn obsession, that's well worth it. But yeah, some people do this. Like I get on calls with them, and they're like, I do 500 comments a day. And I'm like, how does that impact your life? And one guy was like, oh, he has 100,000 followers, 500 comments a day. And he said it's routinely an argument with his girlfriend. I was like, I freaking bet it is. If you're just commenting that much, you know? I mean, how could you not be on your devices all the time? It must be that draining. And I was like, dude, you're going to cry when you see this. And I showed him the Aware engagement feed, and he was like, pretty much there. He was like, holy shit. I was like, I'm not saying do less than 500. I'm just saying, what about 2 hours a day versus 6? Can we negotiate a little bit and like use this? That does happen. People do spend freaking all day doing this.
I gotta wonder if you're spending that much time. Like, how do you do your work, or if you're running a business, like, how do you have sales calls or do the work?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting. I want to shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about this report that you just generated, and
Sure.
I'm kind of curious. Maybe you start with top level. What your most compelling findings were, and I think maybe moving on after that, like, what did you find kind of surprising?
There was a lot in that I thought was interesting. Much of it confirmed a lot of the rumors we hear. You hear engagement out will lead to engagement in. And that's true. There's a 0.648 correlation, R squared, which is stronger than normal correlation, between comments you write and comments you receive. Now this was before the comment profile appearances thing came out, and it was the best data I had, but I was like, yeah, that's really justifying of why you should do this. The outliers were like mega influencers on the one side of like, they just have so much coming in that they just can't. The relationship breaks down. When you receive thousands of comments a day, you just cannot respond to them all. There's no way. Even with Aware, it's too much. So then the correlation breaks down. On the other end, you have the automated spam comments. So like, those bot products where it's like plug in and we'll do your engagement for you. 200 comments a day done for you in the background. It's like, okay. And those are the ones where they do a lot out and don't get much in because it's all crap.
It's like the pods, right? They're Lempod or things like that, like their AI comments and group comment.
That too. There's also now, if you're curious, like standalone products where you just plug it in. And it's not a pod. It just does a bunch of outbound commenting for you, like automated.
I tried one that was embedded in LinkedIn. It would do like an AI comment for you. It just didn't feel right. But I haven't seen it. I haven't gotten to that point where it's just like here's a boatload of comments. Press a button, go. Yeah.
I've seen a couple of those. They're not doing very well on the business side because I think people are realizing like that doesn't work. Another interesting finding from the report was that on average, people in Aware are seeing slightly more total engagement, but average engagement per post is flat or ever so slightly down across the board. But because of the increased posting, they're making up the difference. So they're posting 28% more on average. And yet the median person not in Aware, their engagement is down about 25% in the last year. And so if their engagement is down and the engagement rate percent is overall up, which is what we've seen, that means their reach is likely down like at least 30, if not 40%, which would make sense. More people responding to the advice of create on LinkedIn. That means more supply of posts. But the demand of eyeballs looking for content has not risen that fast. It's rising about 1.3% a year of user growth on LinkedIn in the United States. And that's who most people are selling to anyway. There's way more than 1.3% a year growth in creators. What do you think is going to happen, right? Like to supply and demand, something's got to give. So that told me, like, it confirmed my thought that yes, the bar has gone up. You can't get away. You can't get tons and tons of free reach flowing out the gills like you used to for meh content. It's just got to be better. It's got to be more consistent. It's got to be all these things. But my reaction to that was not give up. It was do better. And that's the thing I hear when I hear complaints on LinkedIn. There's almost like this defeatist tone of like, well, the golden days are gone. It's like, okay, the silver days are here. I'll be fighting it out in the bronze days. Will you? You know? It's like if you've built an audience on Facebook in the early days, now you have a big Facebook profile, you're golden. You did it at the right time. So I think if you want to start or really go on a growth spurt, now is the time to invest so that by the time LinkedIn becomes a much more pay-to-play focused environment, you'll have that foundation built and you won't have to spend as much, if not any, building up your presence from scratch. So the golden day is, I'll even admit that it's over, but if I do, then the silver day is here, right? Like it's almost as good of a day, and it just means you got to try a little harder, which fine, do it.
So maybe I'll reduce that to maybe a single question. In its current form, do you think LinkedIn is overrated or underrated?
Underrated still.
All right.
Still by far the best platform. Job titles, company names, professional work associations. You don't get that with any other platform. I mean, Reddit, what am I going to age with the Zoman 9 to 5 and expect that I know it's you? Like, that doesn't work.
Exactly. It's all trolls. Cool. Well, that's some exciting findings in the report and it makes a ton of sense and very validating for the work that you're doing. I want to shift back to you. Obviously, in the intro, I talked a lot about the business impact of your investment in LinkedIn. Personally, what's been the impact?
I've had to go through a journey of like disconnecting in some way with it. I think there was a period where I realized that LinkedIn had become a part of my identity in a way that I didn't want. And I would say in the last year and a half, I've begun to detach a lot more from that, which has improved my content because I just give fewer Fs about what I'm saying. So I've just become naturally punchier because I'm not as like invested in what everyone thinks of me. Like I care what fewer people think of me than I did before. So that's been good. I've met a lot of great people. Like I've met a lot of wonderful, genuine friends, partners that went on to become good friends from LinkedIn. Not just people I worked with, but people maybe I worked with them and then became friends or vice versa from this. It's kept me like sharp, professionally relevant, all these things. The downside is, I mean, even if across the board, across all functions of the business, I'm spending an hour a day, that's an hour a day not spent reading in the forest. So there's a drawback in that sense, right?
The philosopher needs to be in the forest.
He does. Walden was not written in a post. But I've made that trade-off on purpose thus far, and I think it's been overall good. A couple of years ago, it suggested that my wife build her business on LinkedIn instead of on Instagram. Turned out to be a really good decision. Now she's an influencer in her own right. And there's been tons of good things from it. I mean, I've refined my writing in a big way from this. It's generated the wealth from business acquisition and sales that has allowed me to experience more personal freedom, which I credit to LinkedIn. So there's just so many knock-on effects of having made this investment that I can't be grateful enough for it.
That's amazing. It's bountiful, and there's still a lot of opportunity there,
Tons.
according to Alex Boyd.
I think so.
We're rounding the corner towards the end of the podcast. Sad time, but I have a couple of lightning round questions, if you'll indulge me.
I will.
If you were running LinkedIn for a day, what's the first thing you'd change?
I would advertise the business page manager more and increase the price of it.
Okay,
if I was running LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even know there was one.
Answering that question as if I'm the shareholder of LinkedIn, not the CEO. That's what I would do. You didn't know there was one? Yeah, I would advertise it more.
I know there's you can advertise on it, but of a side, and there's like a social management piece, but I didn't know there was a paid one.
Go to the business page. You'll see it pop up on the top, but it's weird hidden. It's like, why hide it so much?
Is it useful?
I haven't used it, but people that I work with have said it's very useful and they're happy with their purchase.
All right. Interesting.
Yeah, check it out.
All right. Next question. What is a LinkedIn trend you wish would go away?
Running lead magnet posts and then not sending the magnet. Even worse, sending it and having it be all ChatGPT Drek tossed into a Notion file and called something like the $1 Million Sales Playbook when it is not. That needs to die.
Right. I see that like everywhere these days. And I kind of, at one point I wanted to do it because I have, insights to share now too, but
Good.
Just like, Eh, like it seems like a little like played out or cheesy, but what do you think? I mean, you
If
just did
you'll
it.
deliver,
Yeah.
do it. If you won't deliver, don't. It's like if you have something good that you've worked on that is actually good, and I don't mean you shortcutted your way with a ChatGPT deep research prompt. That doesn't qualify. Then do it and deliver. And it might take you hours and hours to deliver 900 responses to it. That's okay. Be prepared for that. If that's what it takes, just do what you say you'll do. So if I don't begrudge anybody a growth hack if you do what you say you'll do. If you won't do that, don't bother.
All right. So send the ebook for the comment play. If you can deliver, do it, according to
Yeah.
Alex. All right. Last question before we start to wrap things up. Who do you follow and learn from? Who do you think is crushing it? A few people you might want to shout out.
People I've been taking inspiration from for a long time are Amy Volas, Greg Head, Ken Marshall, Jonathan Bland.
Okay, those are some new ones. I would say I've Amy Volas. The other three, I don't think
Okay.
are quite familiar. I'm going to check those people out. We'll link them in the recap. So I appreciate you sharing your time and insights with us today. Like we could talk forever. We should definitely have you back again because I know your wealth of knowledge just from reading all the posts out there. So we'll have to make another appointment later this year. Is there anything exciting happening at Aware that you want to share with the audience?
We're releasing the 2 to 3 most game-changing features that we have released in a year and a half this month. The AI post generator that's trained on your voice is one. The second one is influencer discovery, ability to generate lists of influencers by looking within Aware Zone data by keyword of what's in their profile, what they post about, scored. It's like Favicon, but easier and better. Right within Aware, included in the subscription.
Oh, wow.
I can't wait.
That's
I'm so
awesome.
pumped. Yeah.
I'm excited for that. Is there a third one?
I think I said 2. There
Okay.
are others that I think are better, but they're still in the GitHub phase, not in the release this month phase. March, we'll keep it to those 2. April, stay tuned for some cool stuff.
All right. I'll be watching this space. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. Everybody go follow Alex Boyd. He has so many great insights. I feel like every time I see him in my feed, enlightening. I learn something, I evolve my perspective. And thank you for sharing here and sharing there. And until next time, stay connected.
Thank you, Brad.
If you enjoyed this episode, follow Brad and Spectimer on LinkedIn for hot takes and tactical executive branding advice. For the readers in the audience, subscribe to LinkedIn Famous on Substack. And if you really loved this episode, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcasting platform of your choice. Until next time, stay bold, authentic, and keep on creating.